David Berger is a jazz composer, arranger, bandleader, and author who has a long list of creative skills and accomplishments in the world of jazz big bands. Berger has composed and arranged more than 1,000 pieces over a career spanning 50 years. He has written music for symphony orchestras, television, Broadway shows, and films, and has composed and arranged the music of Duke Ellington for Jazz at Lincoln Center, Quincy Jones, and the WDR Big Band. David has also arranged for dozens of singers, including Joan and Aria Hendricks, Betty Carter, Freda Payne, Natalie Cole, Rosemary Clooney, Madeleine Perrault, Milt Grayson, Cecile McLaurin, and many other vocalists. David Berger had a long stint as conductor and arranger for Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra from its inception in 1988 through 1994. David is recognized internationally as a leading authority on the music of Duke Ellington and the swing era. He has transcribed more than 750 full scores of classic recordings, including more than 500 works by Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn. In 1996, the 15-piece David Berger Jazz Orchestra was formed, and in conjunction with choreographer Donald Beard, they toured doing Beard's Harlem Nutcracker show based upon Duke Ellington's music. A full-length 2-hour dance piece that expands the Tchaikovsky-Ellington-Strayhorn score into an American classic. The band has stayed together since then and continue performing David Berger's music. The David Berger Jazz Orchestra has performed all over the United States and Europe, as well as on television and in movies. David Berger has authored the book Fancy Footwork, The Art of the Saxophone Solo, a book that is a study guide for saxophone sections that make use of great saxophone solo sections from various well-known big band arrangements. The book includes recordings to play along with to practice reading, phrasing, and technique along with the David Berger Jazz Orchestra. David has written a major tour de force for any big band arranger or composer, the book Creative Jazz Composing and Arranging. This publication has won glowing accolades from such heavyweights in the world of jazz and arranging or composing as Bill Dobbins, professor of jazz composition and arranging at the Eastman School, Chuck Israel, bassist, composer, arranger, and author, Gary Lindsay from the University of Miami, and Rufus Reed, jazz bassist, composer, and educator, as well as Ted Nash, saxophone arranger, BMI Jazz Composers Workshop. David himself says this regarding this excellent resource. This book is for anyone who writes, plays, or listens to jazz. It explains the writing process and the construction of jazz pieces. I've attempted to answer many of the questions that arrangers and composers ask themselves when they are writing. Players who read this book will better understand the arrangements that they play and will get more from their listening, which will make them better at interpreting this music that they play. Listeners will get into the creators' heads and appreciate the jazz experience to a greater degree. Anyone who enjoys the American art form of big band jazz will gain much from checking out the world of music that David Berger has brought us and continues to contribute to in New York City and abroad. Whether it be his powerful ensemble, the David Berger Jazz Orchestra, his educational work, or any other band he may write for or lead, David Berger is a major contributor to America's classical music, jazz.
A pretty girl is like a melody that haunts you night and day, just like the strain of a haunting refrain. She'll start upon a marathon and run around your brain. You can't escape. She's in your memory by morning, night, and noon. She will leave you and then come back again. A pretty girl is just like a pretty tune. girl is like a melody that haunts you night and day, just like the strains of a haunting refrain. She'll start upon a marathon and run around your brain. You can't escape. She's in your memory by morning, night, and noon. She will leave you and then come back again. A pretty girl is just like a song, haunting you no end all day long. A pretty girl is just like a pretty tune. Thinking back on us, it's sad but true. What made my life worth living left with you. Looking back, it's very plain to see. Love is a very bad color on me. The monster with his eyes of green that left you feeling blue. My words that had you seeing red, excuses all untrue. My alibi's not watertight, the lies as clear as black and white. The fights that ended sleep at night and left me black and blue. Though physically I'm in the pink, my heart is cold and gray. Since you packed up and left me here, my world is brown as clay. Too yellow to go after you, so here at home I'll stay. And all the hues that used to be are ancient news, their history. There's only blues from which to choose for me. You seen red, excuses all untrue. My alibi's not watertight, the lies as clear as black and white. The fights that ended sleep at night and left me black and blue. Though physically I'm in pink, my heart is cold and gray. Since you packed up and left me here, my world is brown as clay. Too yellow to go after you, so here at home I'll stay. And all the hues that used to be are ancient knew their history. There's only blues from which to choose for me. The blues.
Okay, first of all, let me say thank you so much, David Berger, for sharing your time and music on Empire Radio Sounds. You have quite a long career as a jazz big band composer, arranger, educator, band leader. Um, to start with, perhaps you could tell us a bit about why you chose this aspect of jazz as opposed to, say, focusing on an instrument as many jazz players do.
Well, I started off as a small child playing piano, and then I took up the trumpet in fourth grade.
Mhm.
And the reason I took up the trumpet is because prior to that, we spent Sundays with my grandparents, and my grandfather always had to watch the Ed Sullivan Show. And Louis Armstrong came on, and he said, "Sit down and watch. This is the greatest musician in the world." And I had to agree. I mean, I never experienced anything like Louis Armstrong. He was just pure joy and
I
love.
agree.
So, so then later that year, this was in third grade, they showed us a short film with all the different instruments. Benny Goodman playing the clarinet, all the different stars on every instrument. And then when we got to the trumpet, there was Louis Armstrong playing the trumpet. And they said, "Well, if you want to play one of these instruments, and then you can join, we'll teach you how to play, and then the next year you can join the band. Tell us which instrument you want to play." I said, "I got to play the trumpet. Louis Armstrong plays the trumpet." So I took up the trumpet, and right away I felt, wow, okay, so I like the piano, which is really good for, it's kind of like the orchestra at your fingertips, you know. I can hear all the harmony and all that stuff, but the trumpet to me was my voice. I related to it that way. So I played trumpet in the school band, and then in first day of seventh grade, I'm in the seventh grade band, you know, junior high school, and at the end of the rehearsal, the teacher says, "If you want to join the dance band, come at 3:05." And well, I said, an opportunity to play the trumpet. I had no idea what that meant, the dance band. To me, all popular music, you know, Louis Armstrong was popular music. There was popular music, and there was classical music. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
Really. And then there were folk songs, of course, but I didn't really consider that.
Right.
Where I grew up in, you know, New York, and well, you know, we did.
Yeah, I forgot back in those days we called it, well, they called it dance band rather than jazz band.
We played for the school dances, you know.
Yeah.
And the kids would do the Lindy, and you know, it was great. So we start to play the first chart, and it's some lame swing chart, I'm sure. I don't remember what it was. And well, within 8 measures or 16 measures, I was like, I don't know what this is. I can't read it. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't feel like anything I've ever tried to read before, but this is the greatest feeling I ever had in my life. So I said to the band director, it would be okay if I took the music home to practice so I could figure out how to play this stuff. He said, sure. So took home the book, and my aunt and my mother were in the kitchen having coffee in the afternoon when I got home, and they always had like English muffins and coffee, you know, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I walk in there with my books, and then there's this thing, you know, sticking out. What's that? I said, "Oh, well, I just joined the dance band today. This is the music I come home to practice." And I said, "Well, let's see what my mother played piano," and but my aunt was big fan, big bands of jazz and all that.
Wonderful.
Best. So so I said, "Oh, what do you got there?" And I opened it up. "Oh, Stardust. Yeah, we know that. All these great standards and everything." "Yeah, well, you know, go check out the records that we, you know." They had Take the A Train and In the Mood and
Wonderful.
some Artie Shaw stuff, and so I I listened to all that and I said, this is what I want to do. I got to learn how to do this. Um, I was really fortunate in starting in sixth grade. I got a new piano teacher who was very serious, and she taught me harmony. At the end of my lessons, we would always um, we would do like she would give me an exercise to write out like a Bach chorale, like 4 bars of a Bach chorale, harmonize it. And she gave me all these rules, and
Mm-hmm.
I was learning harmony. By the time I was in, so this was in seventh grade. So I'm in the dance band. We're playing, and a bunch of my friends in the band, well, we want to do some more playing. Let's get together like at one of the kids' houses. One of the kids played piano. We'll get together at his house, and we'll bring our instruments and then we'll play. So we get there and nobody knew what to play. Right? So the piano player says, "Well, I have a book of George Gershwin tunes. Why don't we play those?" And well, yeah, but we all play in different keys.
Yeah.
So that's going to be rough. I said, that's okay. I'll next time, before next time, I'll write out some arrangements. I'll go through the book and I'll look at what's written in the book, and I'll just I can transpose it for the different instruments. And so I kind of arranged it from the piano arrangement. I'm sure it was terrible, but it was pretty amazing that I could do it at all. And so I was elected the arranger.
So you got drafted.
That's how it started. And then I can't remember. It was ninth or 10th grade. I switched piano teachers. I wanted to play jazz piano, so I took lessons from. He was the guy that was the string teacher at school. He was really a piano player,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a jazz piano player, but he taught the strings, and he was a real nice guy. And so I found out he taught jazz pianos, and he lived right near me. I could walk over there. Great. So he showed me some. Okay, this is the first thing he said. This is the blues. So, oh, I know what that is. I know a bunch of tunes like "In the Mood" and stuff like that. They're the blues, right? And he said, yeah, exactly. Except that we use a little more sophisticated chords. And he showed me some things. And then after a while, after a couple of months, he says, you know what? Let's start writing an arrangement. Let's do a small group arrangement. Let's do this new Horace Silver tune, Sister Sadie. Why don't you do a chart on that? So took it off the record, and wrote it out and showed me how to write out a score and trumpet and tenor and rhythm section. So I did that, and then he says, okay, let's do a big band chart.
Jump in the deep end.
Right? So he said, well, what tune do you want to do? I said, well, I'm really into this Thelonious Monk tune, Well You Needn't. Okay, let's do that. So I wrote a big band. So I'm in 10th grade. It's my first year of high school, because in those days we had 7th, 8th, and 9th was junior high, and 10th, 11th, and 12th was high school. So I'm like a new kid in high school, and I wrote this chart on Well You Needn't, and I brought it into the, for the dance band to play. And they never played a kid's chart before. The band director every once in a while would write a chart, but mostly we played just stocks. And, we thought Sammy Nestico was good, because he was better than Art Diedrich and Johnny Warrington. We knew those were corny. So anyway, so I wrote this chart, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And we read it down. It sounded okay, a little confusing, but okay. And the guys in the band were, wow, we had no idea this kid was a genius. It's kind of like dancing bears. It's not how well they dance, it's the fact that they could dance at all. Right? So we read it down and rehearsed it a little bit.
Yeah.
The band director was very encouraging, and he says, listen, if you want, tomorrow afternoon after class, come to my office and I'll go over the chart with you and we can fix it up. So yeah, that'd be great, thank you. So he gave me a lesson, and after 2 hours of showing me like all this great stuff, because he was a pretty good arranger, and I said, okay, I'll fix it up. He said, I think you've learned enough on this one. Why don't you take another tune and and we'll play it. You know, we write another. You know, so I did like Someone in Love. I did a vocal chart
Uh-huh.
on that. Okay, um, and then and I said to the band director, "How come we have to play all these terrible charts? Why don't we? Can't we get some better things to play? You know, like what I listen to on records?" He said,
Yeah.
"Well, like what?" I said, "Well, you know, like Duke Ellington, Count Basie." And he said, "Wait, you think Duke Ellington's going to sell us one of his charts?" I said, "No." He said, "No." He said, "If you want to play something good, write it yourself." He said, "Whatever you write, we'll play it."
Well, that's
So
interesting.
I just started writing charts, and we did uh, a show. It's called a pop concert every spring, and kids would audition. All the kids in high school, they would audition. You know, if they could sing, dance, tell jokes, or whatever their talent was,
Yeah.
and the dance band would back them up. So they all needed the singers all needed charts. So I was enlisted as the arranger.
Wow, what a
Kids would
wonderful.
audition. If they got picked, band director would say, "Go see him." And I said, "Well, what song do you want to sing? And what key do you do it in?" "No, I don't know what key." I said, "Okay, well," and so I probably wrote about 50 charts in high school.
Wow. But what a great opportunity, you know. That's
I
like
was in show business. I was
baptism of
15.
fire.
I was 15 years old. I was in show business, you know,
That's wonderful.
and so my band director, um, he was a really good bass trombone player, and he worked at Radio City Music Hall on the weekends. And Ray Wright was the chief arranger and assistant conductor.
Yeah.
Um, and so he brought in one of my scores to show Ray.
Uh-huh.
And Ray says he has to come up to Eastman and study with me. At that time,
Wonderful.
Ray, this is before they had a jazz program in Eastman, but Ray was doing a 3-week workshop there for the
Mhm.
Rangers holiday. It was a Rangers workshop, you know. And so he said, I have to come up there. And so I went up that the summer. Well, actually, the summer before that, I went to Berkeley for summer semester.
Nice. Nice.
Actually, it was like a 6-week summer program, but they put me in. They give you tests, and they put me in with all the sophomores because I knew some stuff. And then I went to my senior year in high school, and then after that senior year, I went to Eastman for that summer, and it was all these professional writers
Sure, sure.
and me, a high school kid. You know? So it was amazing. The third week was basically rehearsals and the show, and they would always have a guest come up to do, you know, like a famous jazz musician. And that year was 1967, so Thad Jones, that was the hot new band,
Yeah.
you know, in town. So Thad came up with Mel Lewis, Richard Davis,
Oh,
and
wow.
Chick
Cool.
Corea. And so they did the student charts the first half of the concert, and then
Uh-huh.
the second half was like all those guys playing Thad's charts. They did one Brookmeyer, and they did some of Manny Album's stuff because Manny was also teaching there.
Cool.
And they played a chart of mine that I wrote. I wrote a chart on Loverman
Hmm.
that they played, and yeah, those guys played. I mean, it was fantastic.
Well,
So,
that's you know, it's not typically when we go into jazz, most of us want to be players, but that's so I really had to ask that question because you don't often meet people who, in my experience, who are on that end of the spectrum of jazz, you know,
well, I
and
knew I wanted to be a composer when I was in elementary school.
I see. And I also noticed in going through your career, you've really kept it a lot toward jazz and not like, you know, I didn't see like you did 300 jingles for McDonald's. Maybe you have, but you didn't put that on your resume. But so
I
it's
have
there's something to be said for the integrity there is what I'm trying to get
actually
at.
in my 20s and early 30s, I did a fair amount of commercial work. Um,
Well, we all got
Movies,
80s.
TV, jingles. I did 5 years. I played with Alvin Ailey, but that was all playing Duke Ellington and arranging Duke Ellington for them.
Well, and yeah, and I want to further along here. I want to get into some of that. About you know, I met Ellington one time myself when I was 15 backstage, and it was
bigger than life. It was just a brief little audience, but it was wonderful. In researching your music, I found a large musical landscape to explore. I'm going to attempt to hit some highlights, starting with your version of Hindustan from your Sultans of Swing release. I see the connection because I was also reading some bits from your book, Creative Jazz Arranging, and Composing and Arranging, where you state music is made up of rhythm, melody, harmony, and tonal color in that order. Now, in your version of Hindustan, after a few hints, the rhythm section and bass clarinet set the mood for what is to follow. In one of the original versions I found on Columbia Records, 1918, after an intro, the vamp, if you will, the music comes in with drums and then horns setting up the rhythm. So what I'm getting at here, the connection between these two recordings, 1918 and 2006, delineates quite nicely what you're saying here, the importance of rhythm as the first consideration when composing. So after I said all that, when you compose or arrange in any style, how might you choose a rhythm that works in an acoustic music setting?
Well, for Hindustan, actually, I didn't know the original record. It's a standard. It's a tune that's played by like trad bands, like Dixieland bands. But the title Hindustan, it's about India, that area of the world, So I wanted to get like an exotic groove.
Yep.
And actually, the way this is, I don't know if I ever told anybody this, but I was checking out Maria Schneider. She had a new record out, and so I listened to it, and she was all the rage at that time, and I guess she still is. I don't know, but this was maybe 20 years ago, and I said, well, maybe I could do something, some coloristic kind of stuff like what she does, not in an exotic groove rather than the usual kind of stuff that I do. So. That was one idea, and that tune, I kind of like it. It's really simple, and I could get like this exotic groove happening, and the bass clarinets, I have them like alternate so that they can play like the whole bass line between them.
Well, that's considerate of you, I got to tell you. That's
and
nice.
And then I told our drummer Jimmy Madison, I said, I just put on his part, exotic groove. He said, well, what's that? What do you want me to do? And I said, well, just listen, you'll know what to do. So you guys like, oh, no. And he knew what to do. Of course.
Yeah, drummers always do, but we like to throw him under the bus.
Well, he just, he wanted in and out in case he fucked up. So, but it was, yeah. So the idea was to do something that was kind of coloristic, flutes, clarinets, bass clarinets. There's two bass clarinets on that. In fact, there's a bass clarinet. They have a chorus where they play a duet for maybe the only two bass clarinet thing in all of jazz. I'm not sure. I have to research that. So that was. I mean, rhythm. Yeah, I was just looking for an exotic groove.
Well, and I think it's worth pointing out to anybody who plays in a band, or anybody who plays on a rhythm, a woodwind like that. And people don't know what they're doing. They'll just write that vamp for half an hour in one player, So that stuck out to me right away that you shared the work between two players. That's
well, I just do that they do that on the head, and then and then that stops after the bass takes over the that function. Rhythm. Although he doesn't play that line anymore, so I need to change up the groove. I don't like to stay on any one thing too long. It gets like wallpaper. After a while you don't notice it.
Well, okay, good. It gets me to my next question. Actually, there's one more thing I wanted to ask about the role of rhythm in music. In today's world of pop music, especially electronic dance music, there are very involved computer-generated rhythms, or beats, as the kids say. These rhythms are designed mainly to stimulate dance. Okay. So on the other hand, in the world of jazz, rhythm and syncopated rhythms are a major hallmark of what makes this music unique. Do you see a place where jazz and, say, computer-generated music can or do influence each other's development?
Not for me. I'm not interested in electronic music, electrical music. I don't even like amplifier in no bass amps.
Really?
We don't do that. If I have a singer, we have to use a microphone. But other than that, no. acoustic
Okay.
music. I like acoustic instruments. That's why I got into music. The human energy
Yeah.
that either coming from your voice or coming or through the instruments. It's that's what I'm into.
Well, I can you're singing to the choir because I think once we start going electric, there's certain an aspect of the human soul is cut away.
Yeah, and also jazz comes from. It was originally created for people to dance to. There's a even if we're doing like Hindustan, you're not going to dance to that tune, but it's got a dance impulse to it. It makes you want to
Certainly.
move.
Hmm.
It's about the way we move our large muscles, and um, it, any piece that I do, it's designed to make you want to get up and move around.
Without electronic enhancement.
No, because when you do that, electronics are stiff. They also don't. There's no nuance.
Right.
You'd have to take a lot of time to build nuance into it. Nobody's going to go. It's not. It's not cost effective, and
Interesting.
still, it's not going to be like the human voice.
No.
When we play instruments, we're imitating the human voice.
Okay.
It's
Interesting.
like I'm not afraid of AI. People are saying, "Oh, AI, they're going to take over from human beings," and not going to happen
No, I
because
don't see it either.
they're not going to. I'm not worried about music being created, better music being created by machines. Yeah, that could be correct music that is created by machines, but it won't be great music. It's
Okay.
not going to have that human inspiration. It's not going to be art. Art is about personal expression.
Hmm.
Machines don't have that, and it's also about the culture. They express the culture that it comes from, and machines don't have that.
Okay, but now, I haven't heard that particular aspect to that kind of question. My brother likes to always say, "Well, a machine can never tell a joke." So I don't know. I say it loses that aspect. They can't have humor. So
Well,
I don't know. Is there any
yeah,
truth to
that's
any
right.
of that?
I never thought about that, but yeah, I mean the timing and also just the we relate to the person that's telling the joke.
Yeah,
There's a human
yeah,
connection. One of the, I mean, look, I think we're talking on computers right now, and I love the internet and I love computers. I can't imagine my life without my cell phone and being able to write on computers. And
the
I can't written a
convenience.
letter to
Yeah,
anybody in 25 years. It's all emails.
yeah, yeah,
So that's all fine, but there's a human connection. I miss going out to clubs and everybody's hanging out, especially
yeah,
with
yeah,
COVID. I mean,
yeah.
there's no. I miss all my friends.
I completely understand that, and we're kind of on the rebound up here at least. And boy, when people go out now, and I do gigs around town, they love it. I mean, people missed it. They
Yeah.
really did. You had a very long stint as conductor arranger for jazz at the Lincoln Center Orchestra from 1988 through 1994. Could you tell us a little bit about how that gig came about, and what did the job call for from you?
Okay, so in 1987, no, let's go back. 1985, um, there was a producer at Lincoln Center named Alina Bloomgarden, and she was at a meeting where they were trying to figure out they wanted to get more summer programming for Alice Tully Hall. And she suggested, well, how about we'll do a summer jazz series?
Uh-huh.
And they went, no, sorry, not interested. So she came back the next year and she said, all right, I want to do a summer jazz series and I'll get Wynton Marsalis to be the artistic director. And they said,
Mhm.
if you can get Wynton Marsalis to be the artistic director, you got it. So they did a series of 3 concerts. Wynton, I don't know if he even played in any of them or had anything to do with it, but they used his name. And he
Mhm.
was busy doing other stuff, so he wasn't all that involved. But it was okay. It did okay, and they decided to expand it to 5 concerts for the next year, 1988. And so Wynton brought in Stanley Crouch as an advisor, and so they had a meeting, and Crouch says, "Well, if we're doing 5 concerts, we got to do a Duke Ellington concert." And Wynton said, well, I don't know that music at all. Alina said, well, who's going to do this? And he says, call this guy. Scratch and I were friends, and so I got a call, interrupted my dinner with my wife and kids, and my wife says, don't answer that phone. And I said, I answered it, and glad I did. And so she said, we want to do a Duke Ellington concert. What do you do? I said, well, I transcribe the stuff off the records. I'll put together a band. I'll conduct it. I'll take care of everything, you know. She said, oh, okay, fine. Come, we'll have a meeting with Wynton and Stanley. And so Wynton didn't show up for the first meeting, stood us up, but he did show up for the second one. And I knew Wynton a little bit because he subbed for me for a few days when playing with Alvin Ailey dance company. And I hadn't seen him in a while. He was a student at Juilliard at that time. So it had been, maybe 8 or 9 years, something like that. And but he remembered me, and I remembered him. So he said, "Well, what's your concept? What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to get guys that know this music, and now I don't want to be recreating any records. I want to present the music as if Duke just wrote it for us today." And he said, "You got the job." Nice. So he said, "Who do you want in the band?" And I named some like local New York guys. He said, No. Anybody in the world will get them. Who do you want? Who do you want to play Paul Gonsalves's chair? And I said, well, Joe Henderson. Okay, we'll get Joe Henderson.
Wow.
Who do you want to play piano? Well, Roland Hanna. We got to get some guys from Duke's band. Well, we need a clarinet player. How about Jimmy Hamilton? We'll fly him up from the Virgin Islands.
Nice.
It's like that, It's an incredible all-star dream band.
Yeah.
A lot of Ellington alumni and a lot of my favorite players. It's amazing. And Crouch said, "Well, I want to do Such Sweet Thunder. We need to do that." I said, "Okay, that's my favorite piece too." And he says, "I also want to do Sweet Thursday." Okay. And then I said, "Well, I put together a suite of the music from the movie Anatomy of a Murder." Okay. And then we'll do some encores, Cottontail and stuff like that. Things like what they used to be. Fine. Okay. So we do the concert, and it was a humongous success. Lots of press, and everybody loved it.
Nice.
It was amazing. Oh, the other thing is, I said, Alina said, "Well, how much rehearsal time are you going to need?" I said, "Well, normally for jazz concerts, they'll like the afternoon of the gig, they'll do a rehearsal, and then, like for 3 hours, and then do the gig, and then it's always like real sloppy. And the way, if you really want to do it right, we should rehearse for 6 hours a day for a week, and then do the show, and then we'll be playing it like we own this music."
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, you got it.
Wow.
So that's what we did. I sent the music ahead to everybody so that they all practiced their parts.
Boy, that's
so they showed up, and everybody knew the music, and it was fantastic. Wonderful. So it was such a success that decided maybe we only did 3 concerts that year, I think, and then the next year we did 5, and we did. I can't remember in '89 which. We might have done a Kansas City. That might have been the year that we did Kansas City music. Also, we did like some early Count Basie and other stuff from Kansas City. Look, Lincoln Center has a lot of resources, so we were able to get top players and guest stars, and everything was first class.
That's a huge success for jazz,
Oh, yeah.
And it's a good story. I like it.
Immediately, we got more press than anybody, and a few years later, let's see, it would be in '92, we went on our first big tour. We did like a 30 or 31 city U.S. tour.
Wow.
And just playing Duke Ellington's music, and every concert was sold out.
Wonderful.
And we start every concert with Rockin' and Rhythm. My back is to the audience. I turn around at the end, people are applauding. I can see just the first 2 or 3 rows. And the expression on every single person's face was like they had never heard music before.
Well,
It's a
actually,
revelation.
I want to get to that particular song a little later. You've written and arranged for more than a couple of big bands in your career, from Jazz at the Lincoln, Sultans of Swing, the David Berger Jazz Orchestra. Um, Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how you do these monumental undertakings. How does one pay a 17, 19-piece band? What is the logistics of booking travel arrangements? Do you have a set routine or a staff? The nuts and bolts of how you make all that happen beyond writing the music.
Well, it's been a while since we've done any tours, but we were touring. Well, 96 through 99, we did a Harlem Nutcracker, which 6 or 8 weeks of 8 shows a week.
Wow.
With a dance company, and that was a great experience. And we just kept the band together, and then over the next decade, we did quite a bit of touring. We went to Europe a bunch of times, the West Coast. Some of it was just us. Some of it was we were involved with Quincy Jones. We did a lot of things for him. So he would fly us to wherever, L.A. or Paris or whatever.
So could I assume networking with the right people to have the deep pockets would be a good answer to this?
Well, it wasn't coming out of Quincy's pocket. Well, actually, one of the ones it's going to L.A. was he gave us his best friend's daughter was getting married in L.A. and his best friend was totally into Duke Ellington. So his gift to the couple was having us play the wedding. So he flew us out to L.A. and played that. But Quincy would get all these really great jobs for us, and so we would perform with him. L.A. Philharmonic, French National Symphony. We were on Letterman with him.
Very nice.
And we did a lot of stuff on our own as well. We did a lot. If we would get like a job somewhere that paid really well, then I could build a lot of other jobs around that.
Oh, nice.
Like once we got, there was like, I got a really nice job for us in Milan. And so once we worked in Sweden and Norway, and we had a week in Vienna. So we were able to do like 3 weeks at this one night.
Wonderful.
You have to be creative. Well, as far as paying the guys in the band, well, I pay them as much as I can. As much as
I mean, I don't mean to be prying. It's just everybody wonders how in the world does anybody pay a big band?
Well, the key, what I've always, and I always say it in my arranging books, is that if you write parts that the players will really enjoy playing, it'll work for you for less money.
I can see that.
And also, if the band is really good, if everybody in the band is really into it and takes responsibility and wants to make the band sound good, everybody wants to be there. And so they'll turn down playing a Broadway show to work for half that much money.
Sure. I can, well, and that leads me into my next question. Actually, I was fortunate enough when I was a young guy to play in an Air Force band, Air Force field band. And we and one of the places that could afford a big band is the military. We had a jazz big band and we covered music from Glenn Miller, of course, to the pop songs of the day, Sal Nestico, Thad Jones on the more advanced level. Luckily for me, all I had to do was play tenor and I got a lot of great solo opportunities. However, I noticed in your arrangements, the sax players double a lot of clarinet, which is something I was never good at. As a band leader, besides woodwind players, what do you look for when you hire your instrumentalist to do your?
Well, one of our tenor players is a great clarinet player, so he gets like all the clarinet solos. They all can play clarinet and flute, Um, and well, the Barry player, he doubles on bass clarinet, and then one of the alto players will play bass clarinet if we do Hindustan.
Mhm.
The lead alto player also plays soprano saxophone. So I like having all these different colors,
Sure.
um, because it makes us more like an orchestra and less like a
Yeah.
band, you know.
Yeah.
Bigger
So
palette.
they
And
definitely got a double.
you know, our guys all work on Broadway, so they have to
Yeah.
keep their doubles up, and um, so I'm going to take advantage of that. They enjoy playing the doubles.
Yeah, it seems to me, as a sax player myself, over the years, especially from the '70s on, uh, woodwind players, tended to go one way or the other. They were really good at doubling, or they did a lot of tenor work. Most of us are, blue collar tenor players, and
Well,
because it's the one horn you can get a lot of work on.
yeah, our uh, one of our tenor players, not the clarinet player, the other guy, that chair was it was Mike Brecker's chair, and then it was Sal Nistico's chair, and um, anyway, Mark Hines has been playing that chair for the last since '96, so
Oh,
a
cool.
long time. Uh, and Mark's not a very good doubler, but that's not what he does. But so I kind of go easy on him. Um, there's not much doubling in his chair, as little as possible.
Well, now I know in big bands, while we're talking about woodwind players, Ellington is famous for writing for his players. And in the Buddy Rich band, Steve Marcus held that tenor chair forever. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is when you're a band leader, like in your position, you know what your strengths are among your troops, and you put them in the right position, I guess would be a good assumption, on how you hire. I guess I'm answering your question for you. um,
Well, all our guys, almost everybody has been in the band for about 20 years
that says a lot.
or 25 years.
That says a lot, I
And in
think.
fact, our lead trumpet player and our drummer have been with me for 50 years.
Wow. That's a long run. So you must really like the work,
They're okay. Yeah.
Um,
No, they're great. They're two of the best, players in New York. So I'm very fortunate, and because I write for the individual players. It makes it easy for me. Uh, I know what they're good at. I try to challenge them just
nice.
enough to keep them interested. And so when I bring in a new chart, it sounds good right away.
Cool. I was listening to your Rockin' in Rhythm by the David Berger Jazz Orchestra. It was live at the Brooklyn Paramount Theater. I think it was 2020. I'm not sure. It might have been before COVID. But one can feel the energy of that performance. I mean, it was just killer. And when a band, especially a jazz band, plays night after night, a certain performance level is reached for. And like in baseball, not every time you're up to bat are you going to hit a home run. You always aspire to. When you compose or arrange for a big band, how do you go about setting up the music so that you can reach that place in the listener's heart where they're inspired, they come away saying, wow, if that makes sense.
Well, when I'm writing music, I write what I would like to hear. What would music that I would like to listen to, and then what would the guys like to play? And then our audience. Who's our audience? So sometimes we're playing for swing dancers, so that means a certain kind of music that they need. Or maybe we're doing something that should be more esoteric. So whatever, I have to, and then if there's a producer, I have to please the producer. So, but I have to please me first. If I don't like it, it's not going to go on the page. I don't put that pencil onto the paper until it makes me feel good.
And that's exactly what I was looking for. That type of answer. The jazz big band, it's truly an American contribution to world culture, in my opinion. It represents the better, if not the best parts of our turbulent society, even though it is hardly visible in the musical industry like Grammys or whatever. As a longtime educator, as well as composer and arranger, how can we keep this magical world of big band music alive and growing?
Well, the big band is the American equivalent of the European Symphony Orchestra.
I like that. Yeah.
Um, and like symphony music in America, hardly anybody listens to it. I just read an op-ed in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago about baseball. And it said, baseball used to be the American pastime, but nobody watches baseball anymore. The average age of people of baseball fans is 58. And in a few years, it will be over, completely over for baseball. And then it said, just like jazz. It used to be an integral part of American culture, who we are, but it's irrelevant to young people. And that makes me very sad, since baseball and jazz are my two biggest loves in life.
Yeah.
I
Well,
wanted to play for the Brooklyn Dodgers, and then when I saw that by the time I was 12, I realized that wasn't going to happen. So that's when I got into jazz.
Well, I have hope. Maybe my next question actually will help find a bright spot in that. And I know this is like apples and oranges, but I would like, if you don't mind, just share a few of your thoughts on. I'm going to give you 4 names of big bands and what you think they've brought to what I'm talking about, the big band history, if you will. And I just chose them because they're just people I'm kind of familiar with. Buddy Rich, Thad Jones, Gil Evans, and then finally Maria Schneider. So we'll start with Buddy Rich.
I wrote a number of arrangements for Buddy Rich over in the 70s. And I never considered it a jazz band. It's a show band. It's all about look ma, no hands, higher, faster, louder.
Yeah.
When I would go bring in a new chart for rehearsal, they'd be reading down somebody else's chart first. I'd be sitting there and thinking, what am I doing here? This is it made me think of that Our Guy in Comedy, where they have a mule named Algebra, and Steinbe keeps saying, "This is no place for you, Algebra." And yeah, that's how I felt. No place for me. So Buddy Rich, couldn't use it. It's crass. It's just there's no nuance in the music. I'm not interested.
Okay.
Number 2 was what?
Thad Jones.
Thad Jones. All right. So I probably was the first Thad Jones, Mel Lewis band groupie. Because I was listening to Ed Beach's radios. Ed Beach was a great jazz disc jockey in New York in the 60s. And so I listened to him all the time. And so this one Saturday afternoon, he had Thad Jones and Mel Lewis on as guests. And they said, well, starting on Monday, we're going to be playing steady Monday nights at the Village Vanguard with our new big band. And we brought in a rehearsal tape. So I said, well, let's play it. And I put on Little Pixie and I went, that's it. I love Count Basie and I love Duke Ellington and I love Charlie Parker and they do all that stuff. That's what I want. I gotta go check them out. So the first time I saw them, it wasn't at the Vanguard. They were doing a concert a few weeks later at Hunter College. And it was their first gig outside of the Vanguard. And big stage, they spread out kind of, on the stage. They play the first number and they all look at each other and they go, this doesn't feel right. It's not like when we play at the Vanguard. And one of the guys says, well, yeah, at the Vanguard, it's so tight on the stage, we have to sit right on top of it. So they all moved in and they sat like really close and then it's fantastic. Right. So that's the first time I saw them. And then my father had a buddy who back in the day was a drummer. And so we used to hang out a lot. And so I told him that. got to go to the Vanguard. And I would love to go to the Vanguards, but I'm just a kid, you know. I'm
Yeah,
17
yeah.
years old, and And he says, "We'll go." And I said, "Well, it's a Monday night." And he says, "I'll talk your mother into it. Don't worry." So,
Nice.
so we went. You know, we got home like 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, school the next day. Um, so we get to the Vanguard, walk down the stairs, and at the bottom of the stairs, this person, I guess it was a woman that paid was $2, I think, to at that time. And so, and if you belong to the musicians union, it was $1. So anyway, so get that, and Freddie takes out a $20 bill and hands it to her, and he says, "We want to sit at the first table." So we're sitting like right underneath Thad. You know, he's standing right. You know, his leg
Wonderful.
is here. You know, and here's like,
Yeah.
the saxophones are right there. You know, so it was fantastic. So we're really grooving out. We're sitting, you know, at the end of the first set. Freddie looks up at Thad and he says, "Would you mind talking to the kid?" So Thad says, "What do you want to know?" And I said, "Well, how come you're playing like C13, sharp 9, sharp 11th, all kinds of wild stuff, and the piano part says C7?" And he said, "Well, if I wrote all that stuff in, Roland would be on bar 7 when we're on the coda." That was my first lesson from Thad. So I started going to the Vanguard a lot. I don't know why my mother let me and my friends do that. I don't know why their mothers let them do it. But we would go and we would stay the whole night. We get home at like 5 o'clock in the
Oh,
morning.
yeah.
You know? And it was great. We loved it. And I got friendly with Thad. And I love, well, okay. So what do I love about Thad's music? Number one, greatest thing about Thad's music is the rhythm. It's totally swinging, unpredictable, swinging rhythms.
Yep.
Number two, interesting angular melodies.
Yes. Yes. I agree there.
A lot of people talk about his voicings. I think they're okay, but very limited. And voice leading is terrible. Sorry, Thad. I wish it was better, but his parts are really awkward to play. And you've probably played his tenor parts, and they don't make any sense. They're just
They're hard. They're very
not
hard.
melodic. And it's out front sounds good, but it could be better. I think.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that brings me to Gil Evans.
okay, Gil. Well, he was one of my earliest influences. My aunt bought me "Birth of the Cool," one of the first jazz records I had.
Uh-huh.
And so I fell in love with Gil's writing. Very colorful. A lot of classical influence. I actually worked for Gil as his copyist for a few months because I wanted to figure out what's this guy doing. You know,
Sure,
not hearing. I had to transcribe a bunch of his things, so before that, so anyway. Gil should have been way more successful than he was. His personality was he was not aggressive at all. He was a pothead, you know. So
Yeah, well.
very, very laid back, and I loved Gil, but and he just didn't take control when he had his own bands. He just didn't take control.
Yeah.
I remember at one recording session, somebody said, "Is that in the fourth bar of G? Do you want an A natural or an A flat?" And he said, "You have no moral obligation to play anything in this band." All over.
Oh my God.
Bands were too chaotic for me, but the records he made with Miles, I think, are at least the first three, totally brilliant.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that leads me to Maria Schneider, who's kind of along those lines.
Maria doesn't come from the tradition of jazz being dance band music.
I would agree.
It's completely not connected to that at all. It's her music's not about swing and it's not about the blues. So it's there is a connection to pop music in her music, which I think has given her quite a bit of popularity.
Yeah, I haven't heard a lot of her music. I must confess, but the things I have heard, some of it almost has some world beat influence, for lack of a better way to put it. Well, David, I thank you so much. This is my last question. You gave up a lot of time here, and I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your time and music with me here on Empire Radio Sounds. Having said that, hopefully you'll make a return visit in the future, because you have a large amount of things I could have talked about. I just chose a few. Could you tell us, before you leave us today, of any future projects you have cooking, and of course, how we can find out more about how to see what you're up to and get your wonderful book, Creative Jazz Composing and Arranging?
Okay, I have a website. If you go to suchsweetthundermusic.com, all my books are on there. There's 2 volumes of contemporary jazz composing and arranging. The second volume is writing for singers. I'm also I've written a small group arranging book, which I'm editing right now, so that's not out yet.
Nice.
I have a book of. I used to have a blog. It was like a weekly blog for a number of years, and I put together some of those into a book called Life in D Flat.
Nice.
Then I have a book out of. I did a book with 2 other guys on Sibelius, the music notation software program.
Yep.
It's a manual on how to use the program so that your stuff looks great, and it teaches you how to do it. You can learn it in a few days.
Well, we could use that.
I'm writing a series of 5 books analyzing the music of Duke Ellington.
Nice.
What makes this guy so great? What's
Yeah.
that all about? And so I'm going to tell you, read the book, and tell you in detail. And once a month I do a Zoom. In fact, I've got one on this coming Sunday, on Sunday afternoons at 3 o'clock, once a month. It's a Zoom workshop on Ellington. I take one Ellington piece and I analyze it, go note by note for 2 hours. And there are other people that are on the Zoom, and there's questions and answers, and it's real good. So if anybody's interested in that, please join us. You can sign up on the website, and I think I'm writing a few other books, but I can't think of what they are right now.
Okay, well, you're busy, and all of that sounds very good. Again, I thank you so much for sharing your time with us this afternoon, and I have hope that the jazz is it's always going to be here. It's just sometimes we hit low ends of it, but you've helped us keep it alive for a lot of time here in a lot of ways. And I think people, that's part of what I'm trying to do here, is get people aware of all the people that are, whether it be jazz or whatever, keeping American music alive.
Well, one of the things I was involved in is Whitney and I created a program called Essentially Ellington, which is we provide. I'm not involved anymore, but I was for 25 years. We provide authentic Ellington scores and parts for free to high schools all over America and Canada.
Oh, wonderful!
And so far, about 1 million kids have played this music.
That's good.
And played it well. Every year, the top 15 bands come to New York and compete at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and it's very encouraging.
Yeah, it is. I mean, being a former band teacher for many years myself, I can appreciate that. And well, on that note, then I'm going to bid you farewell, and I'm going to end this interview. And thank you for giving up your time in music.
My pleasure.
All right.
So long.